Turn that off right now. You're waking the whole neighborhood. At 6:15 a.m. in a raging snowstorm, HOA President Priscilla storms up my driveway in her $1,000 UGG boots, screaming and waving a cease and desist letter. She's threatening $500 daily fines because my snowblower is disturbing the peace on my own property. Total hypocrisy. For 15 years, I've cleared every driveway in this neighborhood for free. Now, this Karen wants to fine me for taking care of my own land. It's 6:15 a.m. on my property, Priscilla. Completely legal. You're just a grumpy old man who doesn't get modern rules. Her words hang in the icy air for 2 seconds. Then it clicks. She just picked a fight with a retired land surveyor. And that road she drove on to deliver this threat. She might want to check who actually owns it. What would you do if your HOA tried this? Drop your state below. Got a Karen story? Here's what you need to know about me. Marcus Kellerman, 58, retired land surveyor who's been clearing snow in this neighborhood since before half these houses existed. This corner lot sits on my grandfather's original farm property, 160 acres of Colorado prairie that he worked until 1987. When developers came circling in the early 2000s, my wife Sarah and I kept our 5 acres and watched them build Willowbrook estates around us like we were some kind of historical monument. The musty smell of grandfather's old survey map still fills my basement office, rolled up in metal tubes alongside my professional equipment. Sarah passed 3 years ago after a brutal fight with cancer, leaving me with an empty house and a grief so heavy I could barely function. That's when the 6 a.m. snowblowing started. Not just therapeutic, but essential. The vibration of the engine through my gloved hands, the crunch of fresh powder under steel-toed boots, the satisfying scrape of metal on concrete became my meditation. Every morning for 15 years, I've cleared everyone's driveways for free. Mrs. Henderson with her arthritic hands who couldn't grip a shovel. The Martinez twins who couldn't reach their car seats over snow drifts. Even Bill's ancient golden retriever learned to expect his morning treat from the crazy neighbor who worked before sunrise. My surveying background meant I knew every property line by heart, every drainage easement, every utility right-of-way, the taste of cold metal from my theodolite eyepiece during boundary surveys, the weight of chain and steel measuring tape. These tools taught me respect for property rights that most people never understand. Then she moved in. Priscilla Thornfield arrived like a conquering army in summer 2020. White Tesla Model X, UC Berkeley law degree, and the kind of calculated smile that makes you check your wallet afterward. Within 60 days, she'd gotten herself elected HOA president. During a Zoom meeting, half the neighbors couldn't figure out how to join. Her property enhancement initiative started immediately. First target, Mrs. Henderson's 40-year-old rose garden, suddenly classified as non-conforming landscaping. Next, Bill's vintage pickup that hadn't moved in 5 years, but somehow detracted from curb appeal. The acrid smell of fresh legal notices became as common as morning coffee. But here's what really made my blood boil. The way she talked to longtime residents like we were museum exhibits. How charming that you still do manual labor, Marcus. She'd chirp while installing her 6th Ring doorbell to monitor our compliance levels. Her voice had that particular pitch that comes from years of talking down to people she considers intellectually inferior. Her monthly newsletters arrived on cardstock, so thick you could build furniture with it. Perfect fonts, embossed letterhead, rules written in legal language designed to intimidate. No RVs and driveways, no visible garbage cans, no unapproved outdoor equipment storage, which apparently included my snowblower sitting in my own garage. What Priscilla never grasped was the difference between a neighborhood and a corporate campus. When you've spent 32 years mapping boundaries, you develop bone-deep respect for property ownership. But she treated the whole subdivision like her personal kingdom and longtime residents like subjects who needed education in modern community standards. Her daily power walks, always in $200 athletic where that had never seen actual exercise, included photographing any violations with military precision. Christmas lights past January 15th, sprinklers running 1 minute beyond optimal hours. My coffee mug left on my own front step. That December morning, when she stomped through fresh snow and thousand boots, waving legal threats like some suburban sheriff, she crossed a line that had been respected for decades. Not just my property line, though that was about to become critically important, but the unwritten agreement that neighbors help neighbors without lawyers getting involved. She wanted to teach an old man about modern rules. What she didn't realize was that this old man had spent his career reading the original maps that showed exactly who owned what in this modern community. Priscilla's first move came exactly 48 hours after our driveway confrontation, a formal complaint filed with Jefferson County's Code Enforcement Division. I found the notice stuck to my front door Tuesday morning, right next to where I usually set my coffee mug. The official county seal pressed into cream-colored paper, alleging violation of Municipal Ordinance 847. 3. Excessive noise during restricted hours. According to her complaint, my snowblower constituted a recurring public nuisance that violated the county's 7 a.m. noise restriction. The irony hit me like ice water. She filed a noise complaint against equipment designed to help the entire neighborhood. But Priscilla wasn't finished building her case. By Thursday, she'd organized something she called the Peaceful Morning Coalition. Basically, her two other California transplants and Cranky Bill, who'd apparently switched sides after she promised to overlook his vintage truck. They launched a next-door campaign titled Protecting Our Children's Sleep, complete with Ring doorbell footage of my 6:15 a.m. snowblower operation. The comments section exploded into digital warfare. Mrs. Henderson posted photos of her clear driveway with the caption, "Marcus is a blessing." The Martinez family shared videos of their twins playing safely in snow-free driveways. But Priscilla's coalition fired back with decibel readings, property value studies, and threats to escalate this matter to appropriate authorities. That's when my 32 years of dealing with municipal bureaucracy kicked in. I'd spent decades navigating county planning offices, and I remembered something from my surveying days about noise ordinance exemptions. A quick trip to Jefferson County Planning confirmed what I suspected. Municipal Ordinance 847. 3 had fine print that Priscilla's UC Berkeley law degree apparently missed. The 7 a.m. restriction applied only to non-essential recreational activities. Essential property maintenance was specifically protected between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. under Colorado's Property Maintenance Code. My snowblower wasn't recreational equipment. It was essential winter maintenance legally protected by the same codes that let roofers start hammering at dawn. Armed with this knowledge, I compile my response. 15 years of documented community service, photographs of every driveway I'd cleared, and testimony from grateful neighbors. The county dismissed Priscilla's complaint within 24 hours, but not before I noticed something interesting in the subdivision planning files. While pulling municipal records, I'd requested the original plat maps for Willowbrook Estates. Something about Oak Street's documentation looked off. The city classified it as public thoroughfare, but the measurements didn't match grandfather's 1950s farm survey sitting in my basement. That evening, I pulled out his old like a theolite, the cold brass familiar under my fingertips. As I set up in my front yard, I was supposedly checking my fence line, but actually measuring something far more intriguing. As the precision instrument revealed exact boundary markers, I realized Oak Street wasn't just adjacent to my property. 40 feet of it ran directly across land that had never been sold, condemned, or legally transferred to public use. Every single neighbor had been driving across my private property for 15 years. Just as I was recording the final measurements, Priscilla's Tesla crept past, her phone pressed against the passenger window, obviously photographing my suspicious surveying activity. The irony was delicious. The woman trying to control my property rights was literally trespassing on my land to gather evidence against me. She had no idea she was driving across the very property I was documenting, but her surveillance gave me a perfect photo opportunity of my own. My formal response to the county landed Friday morning like a legal grenade. 8 pages proving my snowblower operation was completely lawful, complete with constitutional property rights precedents and municipal code citations. When the county dismissed her complaint within hours, Priscilla's response was swift and predictable. Saturday's Nextdoor post accused me of weaponizing legal technicalities and intimidating neighbors with surveying equipment. She announced an emergency HOA board meeting to discuss problem neighbor mitigation strategies and declare my property maintenance deliberately hostile to community standards. The smell of battle hung in the December air. That particular mix of diesel exhaust from my snowblower and the expensive perfume Priscilla wore during her daily surveillance walks. She wanted to escalate this into legal warfare, apparently convinced that her law degree trumped my 32 years of property rights experience. Sunday morning, I fired up the snowblower at exactly 7 a.m. Completely legal, but perfectly timed to remind everyone who actually kept this neighborhood functional. As the engine roared to life, I caught sight of Priscilla's silhouette behind designer curtains, rigid with fury at losing round one. She'd started a property rights war with someone who understood property better than she understood neighborhoods. And those measurements I'd been taking were about to turn her morning commute into a very educational experience. Priscilla's emergency HOA board meeting happened Tuesday night, and she transformed into a full-scale general preparing for suburban warfare. I wasn't officially invited. Apparently, my hostile behavior disqualified me from discussions about my own conduct, but Mrs. Henderson texted me live updates from the back row. Priscilla had prepared a PowerPoint presentation titled Addressing Disruptive Residents, Legal Options, and Community Protection at 23 slides about me. The presentation included photos of my surveying equipment, timestamps of my snowblowing schedule, and what Henderson described as a psychological profile that would make a therapist cringe. Priscilla was suggesting I exhibited concerning antisocial behaviors consistent with grief-related mental health episodes, weaponizing Sarah's death to paint me as an unstable widower who needed community intervention. Her grand proposal, a special HOA assessment of $200 per household to fund a legal defense initiative against my pattern of neighborhood harassment. She wanted every neighbor to pay for lawyers to shut down my snowblowing. But Priscilla had misread the room completely. Mrs. Henderson stood up during public comments and delivered what she later called 40 years of pent-up rage about entitled California transplants. 3 longtime residents followed, pointing out that I'd saved them thousands in snow removal costs. The Martinez family showed up with their twins who apparently asked, "Where's Mr. Marcus?"